People don't seem to realize J. Edgar Hoover was murdered so that Israel could steal all the blackmail information that he had on everyone. In the Chappaquiddick incident, that was staged to prevent Ted Kennedy from ever becoming president, because if he did, he would give back power to the mafia. And the mafia has always been the number one enemy of Israel. They're always fighting back and forth for power in this country. Why do you think Italy was the one country that backed up the Freedom Flotilla? They just really love Greta Thunberg? No. Okay, let me start at the beginning. I'm going to explain to you how America got taken over by Israel. This really started back after World War II. Okay, a lot of Jewish people who were displaced ended up moving into the United States. A lot of those people were pivotal in establishing Hollywood. Very early on, they employed an actor who was struggling to find work. His career was starting to end. Ronald Reagan, okay, a staunch liberal who was dedicated to helping them find all the communists and root them out of Hollywood. You know, Ronald Reagan loved FDR, right? He raved about how great the New Deal was all the time. He didn't turn Republican until right when Kennedy started running. And then suddenly Reagan went the opposite of every value he'd ever had and went on a tour around the country trying to tell people, you don't want to vote for Kennedy. Now, of course, he went anyway. And then what did Kennedy do? He wanted to send people into Israel to inspect for nukes, right? Because they had stolen secrets. We know Ghislaine Maxwell, her dad, right? He sold us some software that we had in Los Alamos. And then they took all our nuclear secrets, and then they stole some uranium. So anyway, they had nukes, and the mafia was like telling JFK, you better get them to get rid of those. Fast forward, you know, the mafia has nukes now, right? And that's why now they're even playing ground and they're taking back control. That's what the drones were about? No? Okay, hold on, we'll get there. So anyway, John, he was putting pressure on Israel that he was going to go in there. Then he dies. So then they were going to make RFK fucking president, okay? He died. And who'd they say killed him? A Palestinian. Do you know about the Lavon Affair? If you don't, look that one up. So then Ted. Ted was all lined up to be president. Everybody knew he was going to win until he drove his little car into the lake. Everybody says that he just ran away from the cops because he was afraid of a DUI. That makes absolutely zero sense. Cops fucking love the Kennedys and they're all crooked as fuck. No, the reason he couldn't call anybody is because they ran him off the road. They were trying to kill him. He was running for his own life. Now they didn't get him, but that's okay because turns out there was a girl in the car, so they were able to use her death against him and keep him from ever becoming president that way. So he got to live. But J. Edgar Hoover, the director of the FBI, he dies. Now, he was also in the pocket of the mafia. He never said there was a mafia. He would always be like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's fake. When he died, nobody questioned that it was from natural causes because he was like 70 years old. And yeah, a heart attack? Okay, it makes sense. But if you actually look, there was a brand new medical examiner who had a long history of being connected in Washington, who was installed right before J. Edgar Hoover died, and he never did an autopsy. And then immediately his secretary, who had worked for him for 40 years, by the one who was like secretly in love with him and stayed single all those years, just hoping that he would marry her, but he was actually secretly DL, so she was a little salty. Anyway, she took all his fucking files, and then they were like, hey, that was confidential FBI information. She's like, don't worry, I'm just a secretary. I wouldn't do anything evil with the files. I was just very, very good secretary, and I shredded his own old bank records for him. And they were like, oh, what a good girl. I don't know what Nixon did to piss them off exactly, although he did talk about, like, the dirty Jews constantly in the media, so maybe something to do with that. Now, you know, 4 months before Reagan got into office, we got CNN. And then magically, Reagan won 49 out of 50 states. Have you ever heard of such a crazy thing happening before? Have you ever heard about the government's studies on subliminal messaging? We all know Reagan was an actor, right? And he was kind of running out of roles when he first started working as an FBI informant. And he was a staunch liberal, and he seriously just wanted to get communism out of Hollywood, okay? And I think maybe he thought when he got president, now I have the power and I can do whatever I want and I can go ahead and be a liberal. But if you remember, he got shot 2 months after he was in office. So I think he kind of just fell in line. And he convinced the American people that the way to wealth was for them to stop owning everything and start allowing the corporations to own it. And somehow more riches would trickle down to us, okay? Start running a debt. Start living your life like you're a business and running on a debt all the time. Low-key, sneaky trick to take all the wealth from average American and funnel it into corporations. Okay, now then we come to Clinton, right? Clinton got a little bit big for his britches, and he tried to broker a two-state solution for Palestine. What happened then? MSNBC and Fox News were established at exactly the same time, and Bill Clinton gets a new intern. Now, his new intern, Monica, did you know her mother had worked as a honeypot years before her? If you don't believe me, look up her book. Monica, who majored in psychology in college, got a job at the White House through a family friend, where she aggressively began pursuing a relationship with President Clinton, according to all sources. Everybody knows she reported to Linda Tripp, but did you know Linda Tripp reported to Lucianne Goldberg? Okay, Lucianne Goldberg, Louis Farrakhan said she was part of the Mossad, right? And when she died, all her friends in her obituary were like, yeah, this bitch had dirt on everyone in D.C., but the soft coup, that really started under Obama, okay? Obama, when they decided a freshman senator was going to be the next fucking president. He just gave one good speech at the DNC, and suddenly there was a grassroots movement. And we were all just like, yeah, this dude that we heard talk one time for 4 minutes, he is our guy. And this is when the news on MSNBC and Fox News really started to diverge. Now, the soft coup really began under Obama. Okay, that's when we were all put under spells. The DNC convention, there was a freshman senator who gave a speech, and suddenly there was a grassroots movement where we were all like, yeah, that guy that we heard talk one time for 4 minutes, that's our guy. He's our next president. Meanwhile, Fox News flaring up the Tea Party, okay? And Donald Trump, who was never really involved in politics much before that, suddenly cared that Obama probably had a birth certificate from Kenya and was going to do Sharia law or something like that, right? Started flaring up the fans of the Tea Party that would eventually become the MAGA movement. Progressives felt so compelled to defend Obama from the racism that they didn't even notice that Obamacare didn't turn out like it was supposed to at all. There was supposed to be a public option. Instead, now we're all required by law to give all of our money to corporations. You're no longer allowed to just pay a doctor directly. So you end up paying even more for your services, right? Americans have less access to healthcare now than they did 20 years ago. I worked at a doctor's office when Obamacare went into office. Trust me. They didn't care that he was putting kids in cages, or that he started a mass deportation campaign, or that he was bombing every country that was enemies with Israel. You know, Obama deported and bombed more people than Trump did, right? Now, Trump was sold as the big bad boogeyman who was going to put a wall between us and Mexico, okay? And his little Tea Party guys that have been prepped for years that the foreigners are the enemies, of course, they're excited and cheering it on. And again, the left, they got to be like, no, you can't do it. MAGA didn't even seem to care when he never built a wall. And then COVID hit. COVID, okay? Now, they had to get Trump out of office because maybe the liberals who are a little bit cynical about the government, the progressives who are a little bit smarter in connecting things together, wouldn't put a random vaccine into their body that Trump had designed. But with him out of office and a liberal back in, of course, we're all safe to go ahead and put MK Ultra 2.0 into our veins because everybody was rioting and they really needed to calm people down. Right? Fascism was starting to get people worked up. Needed to bring it down a notch. Everybody went from protesting George Floyd to collecting Labubus. No wonder the COVID vaccine makes you violently ill. This was also how they prepped the guys with the guns, okay? Because you need the guys with the guns to be on your side. They're programmed that they need to be fighting against tyranny. So we have to oppress them for a few years, right? So they feel what that feels like. So they think the other guys are the tyranny, right? So Trump loses. Then Biden goes in. There's a mostly peaceful protest that they were all corralled into. I know that liberals don't like to admit that January 6th was a mostly peaceful protest. It was. I know somebody who was there. He saw the feds opening the doors and getting all the people into the building. He was texting me as it was happening. He was like, I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but this is shady. They are setting us up. I am not going in this building. He was right. He was right. Later, they're all like, oh my God, they broke in. It was an insurrection. Like, we hadn't been burning down buildings on the left all fucking year. All fucking year. But somehow this was the worst crime, right? Because they needed the white males to feel what oppression felt like. They needed them to feel like what it was like to be unfairly targeted by the government. And the liberals, they fucking cheered it on because by this point, they thought only Fox News told the lies, right? And MSNBC and CNN, that's where you can get the real news. So when MSNBC and CNN made up all these fucking lies, Kyle Rittenhouse, January 6ers, whatever, they just believed it because everybody on the right is racist and horrible, and they cheered on the oppression of the white male. And that is what gave the white male the I don't give a fuck for Trump to come in and take over. He comes back and pardons everybody. Oh, see, he's loyal to us. He likes us. He's not going to oppress us, okay? So when he starts oppressing everyone else, I don't care because you didn't care when we were being oppressed a couple years ago. I know people like to say white men can't be oppressed. Lower class people can be oppressed no matter what they look like. The government is no longer about propping up white men. It's about propping up very few specific families. Okay, so then the Democrats start a government shutdown where they pretend they give a fuck about 0.5% of the budget and they're going to fight so hard about it. Democrat voters still believe that they did that because they give a fuck about your health care, even though they've gutted your health care consistently for the last 20 years and given away all your rights to the insurance company. They don't give a fuck about your health care, okay? They had to make you fucking poor. They had to take away your fucking food stamps. They had to make you feel like you are being attacked. So that when they give you back the crumbs, you think they're on your side. And you don't question why they're not trying to end the tyranny that is Trump. And then everybody said that they were going to boycott Christmas. So they got real sneaky and got angel tree trending so that everybody is now getting competitive and spending all their money on the fucking angel tree so that they forget about boycotting corporations. Anyway, the government's going to shut down again at the end of January. Right? This time they'll be like, oh my God, you don't get your tax return. Sorry. Knowing everybody overspent over the holidays and that they count on that tax return to be able to catch up their bills once a year, plunge everyone into poverty, right? And then that's when they'll stoke the riots. That's when they'll use the Insurrection Act. Now they can take over military rule. Bam! Full-blown fascism, okay? By next spring, we will be in a full-blown fascist country. This has been a very slow burn, okay? Because they need to install Israel and take over Palestine in order for Jesus to come back. So they've been planning it for 100 years. Because why? The Christians and the Zionist Jews believe that they have to, get the entire world to fight against Israel in order to make Jesus come back, right? So now they're going to try to get a world war. By the way, did you know that Luigi Mangione, he's a La Cosa Nostra, okay? Go look and see how many people have been released from prison, the mafia, the last year, right? They're getting ready, and the mafia has a nuke now, okay? They sent somebody over to Ukraine, and so we just let anybody go over there and fight, and then a nuke came up missing, and that's why they got those drones going all over, like Jersey and Vegas and South Florida, trying to find where the mafia has the nuke hidden. So the mafia, the Teamsters, protesting Amazon, taking out insurance executives, etc. They're trying to get back their foothold in the government. Israel just wants everybody to start bombing them so that they can trigger. So anyway, next year, World War III and Civil War. You're welcome.